I will admit all. He made me a co-host.
Yeah, we're live now. We can go.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. We're still waiting for someone to join us, but today is Tuesday and the 13th of July, and we're so honored and excited to have a presentation here with Project C.U.R.E for the program today and on the Washington Brief. My name is Alan Jessen. I'm the North American Coordinator for the International Association for Peace and Economic Development. And we're hosting this program along with Project C.U.R.E. Our association is one of the newest ones under UPF, and we're motivated to really bring together business people and economic thought leaders. We believe business should be and can be and will be a force for good, and that we can find and highlight success stories like the one today. And so that's our mission, and we're excited about it. We also have a program coming up in 2 days. So as long as I have the floor, I'm going to do a little plug for that. It's a program on with the Center for Economic and Social Justice. They're going to be talking about universalizing capital access as a means to knock away some of the inequality in our world and bring about a world of mutual prosperity and interdependence and universally shared values, which is what we work for. So that is on Thursday, and I think in the chat box, you'll find a link to register for that on Thursday at this same hour, 2 o'clock Eastern. Also, there's a link to sign up to for our email list with IAED. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our moderator for today, Dr. Michael Jenkins. And Dr. Jenkins is the president of the Washington Times Foundation, which sponsors the Washington Brief webcast, which we're watching today. He's also the chairman of the Washington Times Holdings, the LLC that owns the Times News organization. He has led a number of well-received fact-finding trips to Korea and Japan that have met with legislative, executive, intelligence, and military leadership of those countries. As president of the nonprofit NGO, the Universal Peace Federation International, Dr. Jenkins has decades-long involvement, and I want to emphasize that. He's been out in the fields fighting these battles for a long time, but in starting and conducting peace initiatives all over the world, particularly in Northeast Asia and Middle East. And I'd like to welcome up Dr. Jenkins. We're so excited and grateful that you're here to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan. Our program today is sponsored by the International Association for Peace and Economic Development, an association of the Universal Peace Federation, which is an NGO with the United Nations with consultative general status as a NGO. And we're just so happy to present a great program for you. Every Tuesday, we have a program focusing on how we can improve the lives of people in Northeast Asia, how we can bring peace, and especially humanitarian aid. Today's program is from North Korea to the South Bronx, making giving sustainable. We're very honored to present Dr. Douglas Jackson, who's the president and CEO of Project C.U.R.E, and his father, Dr. James Jackson, who is the founder of C.U.R.E and on the board of directors. So Dr. Douglas Jackson serves as the president, and also each week he delivers approximately 4 semi-truck loads of donated high-end medical supplies and equipment to desperately needy people around the world. Since 1987, Project C.U.R.E has delivered equipment and supplies to hospitals and clinics all over the world in over 135 countries. And it is consistently recognized with the highest rankings from GuideStar. And I looked that up, and it is so highly respected and was named by Forbes as one of the top 20 charities in America. In addition to delivering 240-foot containers each year through C.U.R.E cargo program, the C.U.R.E Clinics program sends teams of medical professionals to assist partner hospitals and clinics. Project C.U.R.E also provides hundreds of hours of training through helping babies breathe and helping mothers survive curriculum. Thousands of dollars of medical supplies are carried by traveling doctors and nurses in the form of C.U.R.E kits. More than 25,000 people volunteer with Project C.U.R.E every year, making the organization one of the most efficient and effective grassroots organizations in the world. Doug graduated magna cum laude from Northwest Nazarene University in 1982, got a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration in 85. He earned his Juris Doctor from the University of Colorado at Boulder, receiving the American Jurisprudence Award for Excellence in the Study of Law. In 1992, he was awarded a PhD in Business Administration with an emphasis in finance and econometrics from the University of Colorado at Boulder, authoring a dissertation on leveraged buyouts and second public offerings. This man has a tremendous background. We'd like to welcome at this time Dr. Douglas Jackson, the President and CEO of the magnificent Project C.U.R.E. Welcome.
Well, Michael, thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here and to participate in the mission that you have. Alan, thank you for your remarks as well. I don't know of a time in history when we need more people like you working toward peace. If you look through the Times this morning or the Wall Street Journal, whatever your read is of choice, every corner of the world, it seems like, has a need for peace. Right next door in Cuba, I'm watching what's going on. We've been to Cuba a bunch of times. We're seeing what's happening in Asia. There's parts of Africa that are really on fire right now in not such a great way. And if there's not a group of people like us, like you, who stand up and say, you know what, there's a better way. And that way has to involve peace and people getting along. Prosperity doesn't come in a time of war. That's the message that really needs to be carried. So thank you for carrying that message forward. And thank you for the work you do at times like this when we get to share and talk about the things, the ideas that are really important. What a blessing. So my dad and I are really excited to be a part of this. I'm so proud of my pop. This whole thing, Project C.U.R.E, got started because of him. He probably won't tell you all of the details to his story, but we moved to Colorado when I was a little 2-year-old kid, and my dad got involved in real estate at a time in Colorado when you could make a lot of money, and that's exactly what he did. In our culture today, in our society, we seem to teach everybody that the answer to being happy is just go get more of whatever it is. And my mom and dad figured out that that's not necessarily true. You can have a lot of money and still not be happy. The converse isn't necessarily true either. It's just there's not a whole correlation beyond about zero that correlates between money and happiness. I know happy, wealthy people. I know happy poor people. And that's just kind of where it is. So they decided to do something about it. And they gave their money away, put it in a foundation. And my dad started doing economic consulting in Africa first, and then in Latin America. And that was where he first came to grips with this idea that there are people who really don't have enough healthcare to advance their economy. And that one insight is what has driven Project C.U.R.E to become the organization that it is today. I put this background up because I love this. I was down on the Miraflores locks in Panama. This is the Panama Canal. This is the old locks. They're still using these. But to get an idea, just a visual of what started in my parents' garage and where we are today, if you add up all of these containers, take the top row, multiply times the 4 containers down, all the way up to the conning tower, right? So we're 4 containers deep. That right there represents 1 year of production for Project C.U.R.E. Those things are packed with everything from catheters to CAT scans, needles, syringes, gloves, x-ray tables. Right now, we're moving a lot of emergency relief beds. Stryker Corporation gave us 22,500 brand new beds that they had manufactured for the COVID crisis. And we're moving those all over the world to the places that really need it the most right now. We've already moved about 10,000 of them. You put 100 beds in 1 container, give you the size, an idea of the size of an effort that really is. But the truth of the matter is that if people are sick, nothing else works.
Yes.
You take every stone in Afghanistan and you can make it into a school. If those little girls are sick, they're not going to school. We can buy every mom in Africa a cow. If mom's not sick, if she's not healthy, if mom's sick, that cow's not going to give milk and it doesn't do any good. And so really what we're trying to do is just to address that fundamental baseline concept that everybody needs to be healthy to advance society, to advance the economy, to advance all of the good things that we're going to have in that community. You got to be healthy first. So what we're doing is we're just going into communities where, you know, statistics tell us half the world's population lives on less than $5 a day. When you're that poor, you just can't afford to go see the doctor. And even if you can go see the doctor probably doesn't have the technology, even the rudimentary supplies, gloves, gauze, suture. We lose a lot of moms around the world because they don't have any suture. They don't have any gloves. Mom delivers a baby and she just doesn't make it. She bleeds out. That's a sad, sad, sad thing. So anyway, that's what we're trying to do. Alan, to put that into business principles, we could create a capital fund. We could go into all of these places and we could either loan them the money or grant them the money to buy the exam tables, to buy the surgical tables, to buy the kickstands and the buckets and the instruments and the lights and the anesthesia machines and all of the soft supplies that go with it. We could provide the cash and they could go buy that. That's basically what Project C.U.R.E. is doing. We just circumvented the cash and we figure out what it is that they need. And instead of giving them the money to go buy it, we just give them the stuff directly. And what we're seeing happen is these economies. I mean, healthcare is a business, right? We live in the United States. We know that as well as anybody. It's what, 25% of our economy now and growing. If you can go into these communities and you can provide them the things that they need to take care of those moms, there's not a dad in the world that's not going to pay $5 to have his baby delivered in a hospital where the nurses and doctors have supplies and he knows that mom and that baby are coming home. Well, guess what? That's a $5 infusion into that hospital's bank, and next time maybe they can pay the nurse. Next time maybe they can pay the doctor and the doctor won't leave. So we're seeing this whole thing spiral up on the principles of economics, and it's working. And so anyway, long speech to a short introduction. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Alan. I should probably stop and let my dad share a little bit about what's he's thinking about today.
Oh, thank you, Douglas. It's just such a powerful service to humanity. Also, I see your wife, Dr. Anna Marie, has really stood by your side. You're a great family man. Even you were awarded the National Parents of the Year by President Bush in 2005. What a great thing. And that's what we learned from your father, who was also a guest panelist on earlier shows. It's such a family orientation. And that's how we should treat all the people in the world. They're really part of a larger family. And I know that's your faith and your concept too. And we feel it. We feel it. I'm fascinated. Who would imagine this was being able to be done as you're doing?
Thank you. Anna Marie is actually my mom, believe it or not. She looks like my sister. My dad married so well, and my mom and dad, I can say were the best parents in the world.
It was your.
And they've got a plaque on the wall that actually says it. Yeah, exactly.
A little ahead, Dr. James Jackson. I honored your wife and Doug's mother, but yeah, Parents of the Year, we can see it. And we know, Douglas, you're living that way too. It's so great. So Dr. James Jackson is the founder of Project C.U.R.E. He has varied life experiences, including lessons as a child in entrepreneurship, making millions, not as a child, but a little bit older, in mountain development and also the real estate development, relinquishing his wealth, though, later to start over, serving an international economic consultant, and later founding this great humanitarian organization, Project C.U.R.E. We were very lucky to meet Dr. Jackson through Miss Peggy Ujiri, who's the UPF representative in Colorado. And what's been happening with UPF, we've been focusing on areas of difficulty, the Middle East and Africa, around the world. But we've been really focusing on North and South Korea. There's a terrible tragedy going on in the North with the pandemic and with starvation and all kinds of things, and medical crisis too. And it was in that capacity that we were able to meet Dr. James Jackson. And he has worked in a profound way with foreign government officials. And he also was there for the 81st birthday of the chairman, the grandfather, Kim Jong-un, the chairman who was called the great leader, Kim Il-sung, in Pyongyang. There's not many Americans that have even met Chairman Kim Il-sung, who's the grandfather of the current leader. And it's not a simple thing. And there are problems with all kinds of areas of governance there. And yet through all that challenge, Dr. Jackson was able to kindly, respectfully, and seriously work his way through what most people would deem as absolutely impossible. How do you work through a system where it's a command society with a few people at the top making the decisions? How do you work your way through that to get medical supplies, instruments, and basically save people's lives in North Korea? It's very risky. And I know only because of his personality and his sincerity could he win the support of the State Department. You can't just go to North Korea. You have to get the government of the United States totally in confidence that you're going to go there and do some good and represent the government well. So I'm very excited to present to you at this time Dr. James Jackson, the founder of Project C.U.R.E.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's such a delight to be a part of a group like what you've put together and see it actually happen and be successful and influential, and you're making a difference. And I think that's what kind of gets Douglas and myself and all the other 20,000, 30,000 volunteers of Project C.U.R.E. We've actually believed that we can make a difference in this world. We actually are naive enough to think that we can change things for the good. And now I look back and I think, of all the people in the whole wide world, I would be least expected to be a part of the medical industry and community. I am not a medical doctor, but yet the last 35 years I've spent in hospitals and clinics all over this world. I stopped counting how many countries when I got to 150 of them, and my passports are pretty thick. But I take a step back and I think, how did I ever get mixed up in all this medical? But I think it was providence, because I don't know of anything that's a bigger problem. And I don't know how it's going to be taken care of unless we start applying some good basic economic principles and life principles. And so I think back from the time I was a child and all of the entrepreneurial things that we were involved in the businesses, and then moving to Colorado and getting involved in the development of the ski areas and whatnot. And to actually think, that's what I love. I love putting deals together. And now I'm encouraging other people, take those entrepreneurial skills and take, because basically I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businessman, I'm an economist. So I look at things a little bit differently. And I think, what would happen if we sincerely applied good economics, free market stuff, all of that, and apply it, zero in on the problems of healthcare around this world. And Doug just mentioned, but I'm such a firm believer, you can't build strong economies on sick people. And it's easy for somebody who wants to get elected or put in as a dictator someplace. Oh, I'll give you free medical. I'll give you all free medical, vote for me. Well, I've watched that now in 150 countries, and that's easy. That's an easy slogan. But free medical for everybody eventually means no medical for anybody unless you start applying some good basic economic principles to it. So that's really what we've done. Doug and I are both economists, and so we start out with things like the principles of scarcity, choice, and cost. You know, economics is making good decisions. Okay, what has to happen? What do we have to apply to these problems in all of the countries of the world where there is nothing? Oh, how are you going to grow it from nothing? And so if it's a problem where you can't build a strong economy on sick people, then you need to do something about it. But I watch now for 35 years, you don't just print more money or come up with something and throw it at somebody and say, there's your problem. No, because I sit all the time with discouraged doctors and nurses who are not well educated or equipped in the nursing field. And so if you have 250 people out in your waiting room, and the next day, at the end of that day, they have to close the window. So you have to come back the next day and you're at the end of the line again, you really haven't solved the problem.
Yeah.
So it's been a challenge. And I will have to admit, I am the happiest man in the world because I actually get to apply things that I believe in and take it onto the world market and then sit back and watch the results. I think in those early days, I had some wonderful parents. My mom was a school teacher. They made her stop teaching when she was 70. But when we were growing up in our early days, we would come home and she, after dinner, we would all gather around and she'd snuggle us in around on the sofa and she would read stories to us. How boys in America became successful. We learned all the stories of all the great American business people and entrepreneurs. And I think one of those stories has helped me as I would travel through the countries doing the economic consulting that I was doing. I began to be sensitized to it. And it wasn't until I was in Brazil, working directly with President C.U.R.E. on the repayment of their debt to the US banks. And we helped come up with a plan called the Libra Proposal that was a debt for equity swap. That's exactly what it was. And so it was back doing what I like to do. And it was there that I began to see the incredible need for medical in these developing countries. And it shocked me. And so that led to my promising a little doctor up in Rio, out of Rio, and Dr. Geraldo Neves. He said, well, Dr. Jackson, he came all the way to Belo Horizonte to find me. And he said, do you ever get up to Rio? And I said, well, yeah. He said, come, I need some advice from you. I need some advice. I don't know what we're doing. He said, the area of Mesquite is 350,000 people and there's no medical facility. So he said, some of my friends, we bought an old house and I'm trying to get my friends from Rio to come out and volunteer. And I just need some help. Would you come give me some advice? I said, certainly I will. But when I drove up and I saw what was happening, hundreds of people trying to cram in and get into this remodeled house that was now a clinic. I walked up and the first, what used to be an old bedroom, was painted blue and had portraits of babies hanging on the wall. And over in one corner was a orange crate that had a rusty old baby scale. That was his pediatrics ward. And I went into the kitchen and here's a cot in the middle of the kitchen floor. And they're actually doing procedures, empty oxygen tank sitting there, nothing in it. And up against on one wall was a cabinet that had a glass front and all this old medical re-rolled bandages and stuff inside. I said, Dr. Neves, what are you doing? You've got all of these people out here outside and they're trying to get in for you to help them. I said, doesn't anybody help you? Doesn't the government help you? He said, the government has no resources to help us. No. And he said, our economy, we're running 2,000% inflation. So no. And I said, well, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know anything about medical, but I think I can go back to Denver, Colorado and get you some things donated. But then my entrepreneurial mind snapped and said, but you have to promise me, you have to guarantee me. I've been here in Brazil for almost 3 years and I know the corruption. I said, you have to promise me that if I send you things, that you will guarantee me that it won't get in the black market. And he said, you're working directly with President C.U.R.E in Brasilia. Why don't you go get guarantee from him? I go, oh no, this is getting complicated. But we ended up, that was my first load that I sent to Dr. Neves. When I saw what a difference it made,
Wow.
and it was just incredible. I knew and the encouragement that they gave to those doctors. I began working then directly with 2 different medical universities in São Paulo State, and that grew. And I just figured I'll be here the rest of my life in Brazil. And then I think it was Hurricane Mitch or something, and here come the people from Panama, as far away as Panama, and they said, well, why are you helping all the people in Brazil? Why don't you come and help us? I said, I will. And so that grew. And then from there to Africa, then to Vietnam. And to be honest with you, it's not stopped. And Douglas came and saved my life and being able to kind of run the organization. And I continued as long as I could doing the needs assessments for all of those years in the developing countries. But back in those days, I remember a story that kind of stuck with me. It was a story. It was kind of, we see it in as we tell it, here's little Johnny Appleseed going across Massachusetts, and then on into Ohio and Indiana and Illinois, and he's just throwing apple seeds everywhere. Well, that's not the case. He was a smart guy. He went into Massachusetts. He found the cider vinegar people, and they were happy to give him all the apple seeds that he could take. And he started developing orchards and employing people and on a barter system, help have them. And here he takes, and I learned a lesson from that, because you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you can't count the number of apples in a seed. And I think as I look at Project C.U.R.E, here the other day, I was walking through one of our warehouses, maybe $25 million worth in that warehouse. And we've got 7 of those and maybe more with our other operations. And I thought, I can put a value on all of this stuff, about $25 million worth in here. But nobody can put the value on what happens if we can get it directed to the places where it saves lives. And then those people start building the economies, and they become part of making donations and their own efforts, and you begin to build it. And that's exactly what we have seen happen. And Project C.U.R.E is a miracle, because we haven't just helped individual. Of course, we've helped millions and millions of people, and there are hundreds of thousands of people who are alive, but you can't count. Let's just say, for example, in Imo State in Nigeria, they came to me and said, Dr. Jackson, we have enough money to build a hospital for our university. It's going to be a teaching hospital, but we don't have anything to put into it. will you come and help us? That was in Imo State, and eventually we did. And I had the privilege of walking through there on the dedication day. Everything in that huge hospital had come out of one of our warehouses. And they told me, they said, it has made such a difference. But that teaching hospital will go on and on and on and on forever. We can't count the numbers of apples in that seed. And so, yeah, we are thrilled. I am the happiest guy because I get to do and actually be a part now to see the millions of communities where people are alive. I've been in those rooms and held the babies. The baby would have died if it hadn't had a $2.50 IV starting kit. That's all it took, and saved the life. So I like Project C.U.R.E. I think you can tell that. I hope I live another 100 years to see what some of the results are. But our goal is we want to run it. We want to run everything we're doing. I think it's high time that our not-for-profits have access to concepts of entrepreneurial free market and make this thing work. Nothing else has worked so far, and I believe it can, and I think it's spreading, and I think what we're doing is building the model.
Very good, Dr. Jackson. What an honor to be with you both. We have time to just openly discuss. I'd like to ask all of our panelists to be on the screen. That's very good. Douglas, we're so impressed that you would pick up this incredible work after you have your career in law. You've been the president or provost of universities. You've had so much background, so much diverse background in business. What caused you to say, I really want to take Project C.U.R.E. on? It's not an easy work. Your warehouses are massive. When you see the pictures on their website, you'll see that their warehouses will remind you of an Amazon coordinating facility, massive amounts of square feet. And I don't know how they do it. Help us understand, Doug, what brought you into this in your heart? What caused you to leave such a extensive career to do this kind of service for humanity?
Well, I don't think honestly that, we knew that it was going to be where it is today. When we got started, it was a much different organization, and I thought, well, I've got a few things that I can contribute. Some things that I've learned in business and organizationally and fundraising and stuff, and I'll do that for a little bit, and then we'll see what happens. But I tell you, once you get involved in this idea that you can actually do something to impact the direction of history, I mean, that's exhilarating, and it's scary at the same time, isn't it? I mean, the idea that we could go into a country and change the future of an entire country, I mean, it almost sounds braggadocious, and I don't mean it to be that way, but it was that vision that man, we could really make a difference here. I mean, like, really make a difference here. And pretty soon you start looking at, hedge funds on Wall Street, and it's just not quite as exhilarating as going around the world and meeting some incredible people and then saying, hey, you know what? All these folks were going to, I don't mean to be melodramatic when I say this, but it's true. These people were all going to die. And we got involved and we intervened and we saved a bunch of them. And, we can go into places where we've done the Helping Babies Breathe program you referred to. And we can take infant mortality from like 25% down to 5% in a period of a year by training midwives and training doctors. And they call it the golden minute, Michael. It's every baby has 60 seconds. And if you don't get that little baby crying babies are happy babies. You want the baby screaming, right? You don't get them crying in the first 60 seconds, you're probably going to lose them. And what happens in places where we work is that a midwife or a doctor or a nurse will deliver a baby with what they call primary or secondary stage apnea. And all that means is baby comes out and is not breathing. My first daughter, Caitlin, that's exactly what happened. I stood there and I watched it. I didn't know any different, but the doctor went to work on her, and about 35, 40 seconds later, she started breathing and she started crying. They got her warmed up, swaddled up, put in the incubator, you know, and she's a healthy 24-year-old doing great work. In other places where they don't know that, they will assume that that baby's stillborn. They put the stillborn baby, who is viable, but they put that baby on a wooden shelf and they go and tend to the mother. Well, they could save that child. And so all we're doing is we're giving them the what they call the thermal warmers, right? These beds with the little radiant heat come down on them. We'll give them the oxygen tanks. We provide to them the cribs and the incubators and all the stuff that they need. And then we'll go in and we teach them how to use it. And we teach them how to do CPR. We teach them how to use the little bulb syringes and the suction. And we train them on a neonate call. And it's amazing because right from the first day, you start seeing that infant mortality rate going down, 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 down. And we're just saving a bunch of these kids.
It's amazing.
Well, somewhere in there is the next president of the country. Somewhere in there is probably a Nobel laureate. Somewhere in there is somebody who's going to invent something really cool, create a business, do something that's going to advance the entire world's economy. And they weren't going to have a chance if we hadn't intervened. So that is my message to the team, to the volunteers every day is, guys, we're changing the world. And that's why we do what we do.
That is really deeply moving. And reducing the infant mortality rate is a huge contribution to the future of every country, every community. It's just huge. And I'm so grateful for this time. I know that Dr. James and Dr. Douglas, faith is a key component of your lives. And I'd like to ask Dr. James, what is it about your faith that caused you, many good faithful people that love the Lord, they believe in Jesus, they're saved. God bless them all. But it's a different kind of calling when you're called to serve humanity in this way. And I could feel it from Doug just now. I mean, you can feel, yes, Wall Street can give you, certain aspects of increase and so forth, but you can never get the kind of blessing that you get from saving babies' lives. And you're saving all generations' lives, all races, all people, all religions. What is it about your faith that inspired you to take a jump? You had to take a leap of faith at some point.
Well, it was, and it came as quite a shock to us because I grew up with a good background, but I was taught that if you're not accumulating more and more and more, there's no way that you're going to be happy. And so I had to come to a place. We were involved in all of the business here in Colorado and development and in Vail and Winter Park and all of those places. And I would come home and Anna Marie and I would talk and I would say, I think I'm addicted because none of my partners are Jewish partners, all of our partners, and nobody's happy. Everybody has to go out and put another deal together. And then you go to the cocktail party, you got to brag about what else you're going to do and what else you're going to do. And I said, whatever it is that we're all chasing, we're not going to catch it because it just continues to stay a little outside of our grasp and you have to do something else. And so we would talk and we got serious about it. I said, well, we can't start over again. Now we have friends who expect us to be jet setters and drive the Bentleys and all of that kind of stuff. How do you get started over again? And even if you did, what would guarantee that you would do anything different than what you're doing now? You get back into it. And I remember I got serious enough about it watching my own brother, who was a partner, went through 3 divorces, divided up his kingdom all those times. I don't want to be doing this when I'm 65 years old or whatever. And so I was driving down the freeway in my big Mercedes limousine, And I told God, I said, you get me out of this rat race. Get me out of this squirrel cage. I just want to be a simple man and a good man. And if you'll get me out of this, I'll never use my talent and ability to earn and accumulate for myself. I want to help some other people. And I came home, and you can only imagine telling your wife that you're going to start over again. And she was, when we're in high school, she was the cheerleader and I played sports. And so when I'd make a good shot or something like that, here would be this little cheerleader Anna Marie come out on the floor with her pleated skirt and pom-poms. She'd go Jackson, go Jackson. So when I came home and told her, I said, I think what we need to do is give everything away and start over again.
Wow.
She jumped out and she said, go Jackson, go Jackson. Well, here are my kids. They're used to riding in Bentleys. They're used to riding in all this fancy stuff and live where. And so it took us about 2.5 years, and we gave everything away. The only thing I couldn't give away was my house. And I now it has become kind of an international depot with presidents of countries and ambassadors and stuff coming and staying in our guest house and whatnot. But other than that, we start over again. And my kids saw that. They had to go through that. But it made the difference when I got out from under that. And then the creativity began to flow. And it was for good. It wasn't for me. It was for somebody else. And it became exponential. And there's something, I think, magic in that. I think I know it's providential. And I just, every day, still, I'm in my 80s now, and I'm excited every day to get up and to go do another deal and see if we can get into Pakistan, see if we can get into Afghanistan, see if we can get into North Korea and all of that kind of stuff. And then it just seems like the good Lord's ahead of us and opens those doors and makes allowance for miracles in all of these different places. So that's the honest scoop. It was a crisis, and I had to come to a decision to let go. But when I let go, then everything fell into place.
Well, that is so beautiful. The scripture is very clear that you reap what you sow. You sowed service and sacrifice, and so much blessing has come. And I think it's very telling that a rainbow landed on Project C.U.R.E. in the picture behind you. That means you have God's favor. So, Doug, what has been the most challenging thing for you with other countries where you found that it was difficult to work with them? And the second question is, how do you work with the Muslim countries? I know you're all over the world, so you've worked that out too. What's been the most challenging thing for some nations where it's maybe dangerous or difficult or whatever? What's the most challenging?
We have some rules of protocol, kind of rules of thumb. One is we never go any place unless we're invited.
Oh, that's
now you think that through. We never go any place unless we're invited. We don't just go to Bogota on our airplane and go out and say, oh man, we could do a lot of good here. We're Americans, we can just change this whole thing. We don't. Second is we try the best we can to stay absolutely non-political. I would, the places that I have gone in Pakistan and Afghanistan and all of these places in the world, I would not have survived. I would have been shot in the back of the head 100 times.
Thank you, Dr. James. Dr. Douglas, what's been the most difficult for you over the years in terms of political challenge or whatever? You're all over the world. We're all over the world too, and it's not been easy. So we understand something about that, but please enlighten us on that.
Well, every time we get together with the team, I just remind them, I just say, guys, what you do is hard. It's really, really hard. And I said, the greatest compliment I can give you is you make it look easy. Like Michael Jordan's jump shot, right? Every day, it seems like there's another challenge that we're having to face, depending on whatever country it was. We had a great relationship working with Mexico. One election changes it. We're having a tough time working in Mexico right now. We understood what was going on, and this country, that country. One of the ones that's just breaking my heart right now is Ethiopia, and to watch what's happening in Tigray there with in a country where 1 year ago the prime minister won the Nobel Prize, and now the country's coming apart, and so there's that political aspect of it. There's the humanitarian aspect of it, where we go into these places where you just see, COVID in India, right? We flew a bunch of stuff into India to take care of the COVID people. The 6,000, 7,000 people dying a day doesn't even begin to tell the story of what was really going on the ground. And I'm talking to a doctor tomorrow night on our Pinot with the president, and he's going to share a little bit, because he was ground zero in India over the last couple of months, watching what's going on. That's a tough thing, right? Just emotionally, that's tough. But to make Project C.U.R.E work, we have 3 plates that we have to spin. We've got to do the procurement plate, and that's where we go out and we work with the local hospitals to do the, hey guys, we're doing a lot of work, and can we count on you to help us? And the local hospitals all over the United States are donating, just their excess to Project C.U.R.E. We work with manufacturers. We work with wholesalers. Hospice, what do you do when grandma passes away and you've got a $10,000 hospital bed sitting in the bedroom and a garage full of supplies? A lot of hospice will support Project C.U.R.E. So that's the procurement side of it, all of this stuff we're going to ship. The other one is the volunteers. My dad referred to, I think in 2019, we had somewhere between 25 and 30,000 volunteers. And this is on a paid staff of 30 people. So it's about 1,000 volunteers per person, right? But we've got to have those people that come in on a regular basis and, give their time. Not that they're not getting paid, they just don't get paid in cash. They get paid in the knowledge that they're changing the world, and that's a really important thing. And let me just take a little sequitur on that, Michael, because we did a cool thing this last year. We had this great kid in Chicago. His name's Danny. And he came to us from another really fantastic organization called Feed My Starving Children. And they are about as good as I know on volunteers. So anyway, Danny comes over and we watched what he did, and he's really good at working with volunteers and people. So we elevated him to a position of National Director of Volunteer Resources, right? And he's the people guy. And the notion is what if you could go beyond where we are now, and we could create a volunteer leadership training program where every one of those people get basically the same training as what GE used to put people through in Basking Ridge, but we're going to do with our volunteers. So we're going to teach them communication skills. We're going to teach them leadership skills. We're going to teach them, all the skills you need to lead a team, but we're investing back in volunteers again. So that's the volunteer part of it. I'm thrilled to see what we're going to do on that one. And that, again, that's just good business principles, right? And then the third one is money. And we're always chasing money, the same as every other organization in this world. I tell the team all the time, I say, guys, the only difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit, between us and everybody else, is we just don't pay taxes. But all the rest of those rules, like the fact that your revenue has to be greater than your expenses, that applies. You can't waste money, that applies. Don't overhire, that applies to us too. We just got to do it better. So,
wow,
yeah.
Great. How about in a Muslim country? How did you work out the relationship with Muslim countries, with even the king or Bahrain or wherever you've been? I know you've been everywhere. So how do you approach that? The first they ask you to come. So that's one
Right.
step in your favor. So,
well, and I've noticed, and I'm going to answer this, and I want my dad to pitch in because I know he's got a couple of great stories about this. I've noticed some questions coming through on the chat, and I want to answer that, and I'm going to answer this other some of these questions in the same answer.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that we do always is we always find a good partner. We decided a long time ago, it wasn't in Project C.U.R.E.'s purview to go set up hospitals and run hospitals around the world. There's some really fine doctors who are running some really great hospitals. They just don't have any resources. So what if we sat in the back seat and basically handed a gas card, said, you're driving, we're going to give you the resources to do what you do. And so all of the folks in the chat box that said, hey, I would love to, get you involved in working with another organization that I know, we would love to do that. And all people ever have to do is they just get on the website. There's a request for assistance. They fill it out. One of our team comes back and says, let's talk about your project. So a couple of those great friends of ours are people in the Islamic community. We've done a lot of work with Islamic Relief Foundation out of Virginia. Anwar, that used to be the chair, was a very, very dear friend of mine. He always teased me about my cowboy shirts, right? And he had lived in Texas for a bit, and he liked those shirts. And so, but anyway, we would spend time all the time when, I'd be in DC and we would go out to eat together. He'd take me to his favorite halal restaurant, and we're doing the same thing with the Islamic World Bank right now. So that's never really been an issue because, if whatever your faith is, if you truly believe God loves people and we're commanded to do the same thing, then guess what? We're going to go there and we're going to work with these people. And, I don't know a single culture where I haven't gone someplace and they don't have a pizza shop.
Yes.
Right. And it sounds trite, but the fact is we're all human beings and we all love our kids.
Right.
And, we all want a good life. And back to that principle, good life starts with good health care. So, but anyway, yeah, my dad's he's got a world of stories about working with all kinds of friends, and a lot of those are in the Islamic community.
We're learning so much.
I was just thinking when you mentioned that the night that I got on the airplane in Karachi, and the guy sat down next to me, and as soon as we got seated, the whole cockpit emptied out, and they came and shook this guy's hand and told him he was so glad that he was on board. And I thought, whoa, United can pick up on this. They'll come right to me and give me a welcome too. But no, they didn't. Well, who is this guy? So we were in flight about 2 o'clock in the morning or something, and we were exchanging cards and whatnot. And here he was the head of the parliament of Pakistan. And lo and behold, he was also ended up being the ambassador and the consul general of the World Congress on Islam. And he was headed at that time to discuss Bosnia and Herzegovina, whatever, in Frankfurt. And so here we are, and he said, "What were you doing in Karachi?" I told him, I said, well, we're all of the casualties coming out of Afghanistan. And I said, the hospitals, and we are now going in and giving the supplies to them. And I just told him a little bit, well, that pretty piqued his curiosity. And he said, I am Muslim, and we have the 5 pillars. And he said, tell me your story. And I told him, I just told him about giving up to God and, and going. And he said, I have never in my life actually met anyone who did it. And he said, all right, when will you be back to Karachi? And I said, Islamabad. And I told him when I'd be back through with the loads and that kind of stuff. He said, would you come and speak to my friends? And I said, well, I'd be proud to speak to your friends. He said, I will put a dinner party together with the most influential people from all of Pakistan. But he said, I want you to tell them what you just told me about God. And I said, I would be happy to. So anyway, later we did. I went back and talked to him, and he had the ambassadors and everything. And it was just an incredible time. But I find that there's a lot of commonality. And together as we work, we've been able, that sincerity and openness and frank discussion also led me in I've been in all the refugee, Palestinian refugee camps and all of that, but it does work and they sense it. And then you can start building relationships. I think I told you on when we were talking about North Korea, nothing happens until you're willing to go in and build a relationship with the leaders of these countries. Then you can start getting common ground and actually see some things happen.
On that light, tell us both Dr. James, and then I'd like to ask Dr. Douglas. Tell us about your trip into North Korea and how that happened. And we only have a couple minutes left, so I'd like to turn to Dr. Douglas and ask, how can we get back into North Korea, or how can Project C.U.R.E. Get back involved? I know David Beasley of the World Food Program is there and is working there, or trying to get more in there.
Well, we're trying to stay on top of what's happening. Things are happening so fast, as you all know. You know way better than I do. But I've been to North Korea 8 times, and absolutely, in fact, this is not much of a known fact, but I've had the top generals and right here in my home. They have stayed in my guest house. The State Department seconded them to me, and they were my friends in Pyongyang, and they have come here. Doug even ran them up the Vale to let them see how the poor people live. but it's possible to have that kind of relationship, and that's where it becomes effective. And it won't happen unless we're willing to do that. So.
Thank you, Dr. James. That's such a lesson. You shared that before, but I just want to mention that we have programs on diplomacy, and also people, Ambassador to Korea, Christopher Hill, Ambassador Detrani, and they said exactly the same thing. They treated everybody they engaged with as somebody they could possibly get to be friends with and get to know heart to heart. And when you can do that, yes, the government has a lot of powers, but everybody has a heart. Now, not everybody can be reached, but when you treat them with that kind of respect, then it's a different kind of dynamic. So thank you, Dr. James Jackson. You're a hero to America and to all of us. And even a greater thing is that you have your son picking up that great responsibility. That's got to be one of the most important things that can happen. And Dr. Douglas, if you could share, what are your thoughts on North Korea now? Are there any invitations coming in? They're ravaged by the virus and so forth, and starvation and medical problems. I saw a special years ago when a doctor went in to help them with cataract surgery, and they just needed simple cataract procedures, and he did a miracle working with so many. Dr. Douglas, what about North Korea?
Yeah, I think that there's a huge opportunity. Right now, we don't have an invitation to come in again. I think the last time I was there was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I've only been once, but it was kind of neat to go to the same hospitals where my dad had been a few years before. And interestingly, they were surprisingly similar to the condition where he met them. You know, aside from the supplies that had the little Project C.U.R.E. sticker on it, we could see the good that we had done, but there was a lot more left to be done. And you know, we're here to do that, and we would love to extend that hand and just say, listen, you know, we can have a vigorous debate over communism versus socialism versus capitalism versus any of the other isms. But at the end of the day, we got to recognize the humanity of this thing, and let's take care of the people. And then we can talk about some of this other stuff. Now, that's easier said than done. But I think what we really believe is that if you can create an example and you can show how it works and where it works, that there will be people who will pick up on that and say, you know what, I buy that. You've inspired me. I'm going to do my piece. We get enough people who step up and say, I'm inspired, I'm going to do my piece. That's when things really start to change. So I'm hoping to hear from somebody at some point and say, hey, let's go in and pick up the work where you and your dad left off, and let's keep doing this. So
Well, we have many member countries that are part of UPF that have diplomatic relations with North Korea. And that certainly would be something we would want to encourage them to reach out to you for help, because I think you would bring a huge degree of help in the medical field for North Korea. And Dr. Jackson, you shared with us, Dr. James, you shared with us before that you had to really get the right partner, and also you yourself followed the equipment donated right to the end users, but you made friendships along the way, and then they invited you back again. I didn't know you went 8 times. So we're very grateful for this session, and we do want to see what we can do to support your efforts, promote your efforts. I do want to share really quick the Project C.U.R.E website, projectcure.org. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience just going to the website. 2,078 containers shipped, 146,501 volunteer hours, countries served, and that's just over the last few months, I understand. And then the impact is just enormous. They have everything here, how you can volunteer, how you can get involved, how you can donate. So we need procurement, we need more medical equipment. We also need volunteers, and we need funds. Everybody, I'd like to ask everybody here to go to that Project C.U.R.E website and click that green button. I'm going to do that today, and let's all give something because they sure are giving to the world. So Dr. James Jackson and Dr. Douglas, if you could just give your final remarks, and we'll have to close. Go ahead.
yeah, I'll let you start.
Well, I want to reemphasize that our association now and getting acquainted with all of you emboldens us too. And we thank God for you and what you're doing and the incredible amount of exposure that you're having in drawing people together and focusing in on these hot spots and things. So I just want you to know how much we appreciate it and applaud you for that, and thank God for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, James. Douglas?
Well, Michael, thank you. Thanks for your comments and your support and for encouraging everybody. It's just been really, really great to be with you and Alan and everybody that's on this call. I think one of the profound quotes that I love to close a session like this with is from Albert Schweitzer, who also gave up a career as a Lutheran minister and decided to spend his life caring for the medical needs of people in what's now Gabon, Africa. And he said this, he said, I don't know your destiny, but the one thing I do know is the only ones among you who will ever be truly happy are those who seek and find ways to serve other people. And I would just encourage you to continue your service of other people, because it is the only thing really that changes the world. So thanks everybody, this has been fantastic.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas Jackson. Thank you, Dr. James Jackson. Thank you, Project C.U.R.E. Thank you to all of our viewers from Europe. I see so many registered, and we're also on YouTube with several hundred. We thank you for Canada and Lily and also Marcia in Spain. I see you there. Volunteers throughout the world. And let's try to help find volunteers that can join Project C.U.R.E. also. This would be a great experience for young people, life-changing. And we're encouraged to give. Thank you so much, and we're so honored. Thank you, Peggy, for introducing us to the Jackson family. And God bless you all. Have a wonderful week, and we're going to make a better world, that's for sure, if we stick with Project C.U.R.E. and some of the other great people around the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.